Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to explore about chapter 10, Light Reflection and Refraction, topic 10.3, Refraction of Light. These are all the topics discussed in this video. Subtopics under 10.3. It starts from 10.3.1 till 10.3.8. We have so much to discuss. Stay tuned. Before entering into the actual content, let's begin this module with a starter activity which consists of so many pictures. Just observe it and guess the concepts. Here we go. Yes children, observe these pictures closely and guess what's the concept. I'll give you 5 seconds. Your time starts now. Wow, that's cool. Your guess is right. The answer is refraction of light. Yes. Light seems to travel along straight line paths in transparent medium. Well, what happens when a light enters from one transparent medium to another? Does it still move along a straight line path or change its direction? Let's understand through these examples. You would have noticed that a straw placed in a glass of water looks bent at the surface of water when viewed obliquely. Likewise, lemon in water appears to be so bigger in size. The bottom of the tank or a pond containing water appears to be raised, or the object seen in the pond appears a little closer. The coin placed in a large shallow bowl becomes visible on pouring water into the bowl. Reversing arrows when water is poured in the glass. All these are the tricks of light. We shall explore how a light ray travels from one optical medium to another optical medium through a concept called refraction of light. The literal meaning of refraction is bending. When a ray of light passes from one medium to another medium, its speed changes. Due to this, there is a change in direction of the ray. This change of direction suffered by a ray of light as it passes obliquely from one optical medium to another optical medium with different optical densities is known as refraction, or simply bending of light. When a light travels from one medium to another is also another definition for refraction. Okay then, what do you mean by optical density? Any guesses children? The degree to which a refractive medium retards transmitted rays of light or measure of speed of light travels in a medium is called as an optical density. When a light travels at higher speed, then that type of medium are called as optical rarer medium. When a light travels at lower speed, then that type of medium is called as optically denser medium. Children, but note this point. Whenever a ray of light is incident on a surface separating two media, a small fraction of light always get reflected. Refraction can make an object to appear in different position. At this moment, you could see three ray diagrams, right? Look at the first picture. A ray of sunlight passes from air to water, where air is the first medium and water is the second medium. Since both the mediums have different optical densities and speed, the bending takes place. Hope you can see the incident and refracted ray. If a normal is drawn, one can mark the angles it makes. The angle between the incident and normal is angle of incidence. The angle between the refracted ray and the normal is angle of refraction. So let's understand what is the relation between optical density and speed of light. Here you can see the optical density and speed of light are inversely proportional, which means whenever the speed of light increases, the optical density decreases, or the speed of light decreases and optical density increases. Now look at the pictures at the right corners. When a ray of light travels from a rarer to a denser medium, the refracted ray always bends towards the normal. When a ray of light travels from a denser medium to rarer medium, the refracted ray moves away from the normal. Hope the pictures help you in understanding. Next, refraction through a rectangular glass slab. Let us now perform an experiment and find out how light gets refracted when it is incident on a rectangular glass slab. Hope you can see a transparent rectangular shaped glass slab. That's what we are going to use in order to do this activity. Let's understand step by step. First, fix a sheet of white paper on a drawing board using drawing pins. Next, Place a rectangular glass slab. Then trace the boundary ABCD of the glass slab. Now remove the glass slab. Draw an incident ray IO. Draw the normal N1 and N2 at the point of incidence. Fix two pins on the incident ray IO and place the rectangular glass slab within its boundary ABCD. Now looking from the other side of the glass slab, fix two pins such that the feet of all are in a straight line. Now remove the glass slab and the pins. Mark the pin points P1, P2, P3 and P4. Join P3 and P4 and represent that as an emergent ray O'(E). Join OO' where OO' is the refracted ray. Now measure the angle of incidence, the angle of refraction and the angle of emergent. We observe that angle of incidence is greater than of angle of refraction and angle of incidence is equal to angle of emergence. Now extend O'(E) backwards. We observe that the emergent ray is parallel to the incident ray. From the above experiment, one can say that the ray of light is passing from air to glass, which means that when a light is passing from rarer to denser medium, the refracted ray bends towards the normal. Incident ray and the emergent ray are parallel to each other, which means the refracted ray is displaced from its original path by distance xy. This displacement is referred as lateral displacement or lateral shift. From this, when a ray of light travels from a denser to a rarer medium, it moves away from the normal. Hope you can see the definition of a lateral shift and the factors on which the lateral shift depends are shown over here. Please make a note of it, children. Next one is laws of refraction. There are two laws of refraction. The first law is the incident ray, the normal, the refracted ray all lie on the same plane. The second law is otherwise called as Snell's law of refraction, which means that the ratio of sine of angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction is constant for a light of a given color and for a given pair of media. That can be written as sin I by sin R is equal to constant, where I stands for angle of incidence and R stands for angle of refraction. That constant will be most probably called as N, and that N stands for refractive index. Next, refractive index. What do you mean by refractive index? The ability of the light to refract is called as refractive index, or otherwise the measure of bending of ray of light when passing from one medium to another is called as refractive index. There are two types of refractive index. First one is absolute refractive index and second one is relative refractive index. The absolute refractive index is defined as the refractive index of the medium equal to the ratio of speed of light in vacuum or air to the speed of light in that particular medium. Refractive index is represented by the letter small n. So how can we write the formula? Then formula goes like this. N is equal to C by V. This ratio is always constant for the given pair of media, where C stands for speed of light in air or vacuum and its value is 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second, and V stands for speed of light for the given medium. So hope you can see the formula at the screen. Now next one, relative refractive index. Children, now look at the figure given closely. A ray of light travels from one medium to another medium. Let V1 be the speed of light for the first medium and V2 be the speed of light for the second medium. So, the refractive index of medium 2 with respect to medium 1 can be given by the ratio of speed of light in medium 1 to the speed of light in medium 2. This is usually represented by N21, that is second medium with respect to first medium. Formula goes like this. N21 is equal to V1 by V2. And the same way, this can be written for N12 as N12 is equal to V2 by V1, which means the refractive index of medium 1 with respect to medium 2 is given by the ratio of speed of light in medium 2 and the speed of light in medium 1. That's what the case. Note down, children, this formula should be used only when two other mediums are given, like water to glass or glass to water, but excluding air. When R is given as a first medium, make sure you always use the formula N is equal to C by V. That is nothing but absolute refractive index. Now, here you can see some of the values given, right? The values of air, water and glass, these are all the refractive index values. Make sure you fix these in your mind because in numericals mostly these three mediums will be asked. Okay, next, formulas. These are all the formulas used to find the refractive index for the different situations. I hope you're familiar with first one, second one, third one, even fourth one. But fifth one and sixth one is new for you. Look into that closely. In that particular formula, you can see all the variables are in the form of n, which means that if two refractive index values are given and they are asking you to find the refractive index one with respect to other, in that particular case, you are supposed to use these formulas. For example, if you look on to formula number 5, that is n12, which means that refractive index of first medium to second medium. If they are asking you to find like that, that is first medium to second medium, you are supposed to use the formula n12 is equal to n1 by n2. If they're asking you to find like second medium to first medium, then you're supposed to use the formula n21 is equal to n2 by n1. So hope you understood. These are all the totally, it has 6 formulas in order to determine the refractive index. Okay, now absolute refractive index values of some mediums are given here. Have a look at that, guys. Next, spherical lenses. What do you mean by spherical lenses? Here we are going to see what do you mean by a lens and what are the different types of lenses and then what are the lenses which have been used in different situations. So let's understand what do you mean by lens first. Any idea, children? What do you mean by lens? Okay. Lens is a transmissive optical device that focuses or disperses a light beam by means of refraction. A simple lens consists of a single piece of a transparent material, while a compound lens consists of several simple lenses usually arranged along a common axis. Here we will be learning about spherical lens. What do you mean by spherical lens? A lens whose surface has the shape of a sphere or a part of a surface of a sphere is called as a spherical lens. There are two types of spherical lenses. The first one is converging lens or a convex lens. The second one is diverging lens or a concave lens. Let's see how a concave and convex lens are made. When two glass spheres are intersected, that intersected region can be called as a convex lens. Likewise, when two glass spheres are placed nearby, the gap-filled portion forms a convex lens. In some important terms related to the spherical lenses are as follows. The first one is optic center. The center part of the lens, the center point of the lens is called as an optic center. It is represented by O. Next, principal axis. The imaginary line passing through the optic center and center of curvature is called as principal axis. Okay, then what is center of curvature? The center of these spheres are called as center of curvature of the lens. It is represented by C. Since there are two centers of curvature, we can represent them as C1 and C2. The next one is aperture. The effective diameter of the circular outline of a spherical lens is called its aperture. The radius of curvature is defined as the distance between C and O. Since we have two center of curvatures, we can have as R1 and R2. That is, radius of curvature can be had as R1 and R2. That is the distance between C1 and O. That is R1, and C2 and O is R2. For spherical lenses, usually C1 and C2 are not pronounced. Instead, we will pronounce that as 2F1 and 2F2. So in the place of C1 and C2, we can replace as 2F1 and 2F2. Hope you can see the picture clearly over here at this particular moment, which explains the same for you. Yes, we shall confine our discussion in this chapter to such lenses whose aperture is much less than its radius of curvature R. Such lenses are called as thin lenses with small aperture. Okay, now let's see what happens when the parallel rays of light are incident on a lens. Let's do this with an activity. Hope this picture explains everything of the setup what has been used for this activity. Hold a convex lens in your hand, directed towards the sun. Focus the light from the sun on a sheet of a paper. Obtain a sharp image on the paper, image of the sun on the paper. Hold the paper and the lens in the same position for a while. Keep observing the paper. What happens? The paper begins to burn, producing some smoke. It may even catch fire after a while. Why does it happen? Why does a fire comes from that particular paper? Here we are not having any matchboxes. Only a simple setup, a paper and a lens. But still a fire has been formed over there. What is the cause of it? The light from the sun constitutes parallel rays of light, and these rays are converged by the lens at the sharp bright spot formed on a paper. In fact, the bright spot you got on a paper is the real image of the sun. This point is called as a focal point or focus point. With this, one can understand principal focus just by passing a parallel beam of light through a lens. The principal focus of convex lens and concave lens can be defined as when a beam of light rays passing parallel to the principal axis, after getting refracted by a convex lens, it all gets converged at a point, and that particular point falls on the principal axis, and that point is called as principal focus of the convex lens. Convex lens is otherwise called as converging lens. Okay, next case. Can we define the principal focus of a concave lens? The principal focus of a concave lens or a diverging lens can be defined as when a beam of light rays passing parallel to the principal axis, after getting refracted by a diverging lens or a concave lens, it gets diverged, but it seems to be coming from a point, and that point is called as principal focus of a concave lens or a diverging lens. Hope you can see the picture and the definition on the screen. Here, the principal focus of a concave as well as for a convex lens is represented by the letter F. So, lens has two focus, and that can be read as F1 and F2 because light can be passed through both the sides of the lens. Yes, the next one is image formation in lenses using ray diagrams. In order to get into the image formation, we must follow some basic rule in order to plot the image for a spherical lenses. We can represent image formation by lenses using ray diagrams. Ray diagrams will help us to study the nature, position, size of the image formed by the lenses. For drawing ray diagrams in lenses, we need to follow these rules. The first rule goes like this. When a ray of light passing through the optic center, it goes without any deviation. That is applicable for both the lenses. Hope the pictures help you in understanding. The second rule is when a ray of light passing parallel to the principal axis, after refraction, it will always pass through the focus that is present on the other side. So here you can see when a ray coming parallel to the principal axis for a concave lens as well as for a convex lens, always it passes through the focus for a convex lens, and it seems to be coming from the focus for a concave lens. Yes, the third rule is when a ray of light passing through the focus, after refraction, it will be parallel to the principal axis. This is the first case shown for a convex lens. A ray of light coming through the focus. After refraction, it is parallel. Likewise, for the second case, that is for a concave lens, when it falls on the focus, it will be parallel after refraction. Yes, these are all the three rules used in order to plot the image for a spherical lenses. Next, let's see the image formation for a convex lens. Yes, the convex lens image formation. The ray diagrams for the image formation in a convex lens for few positions of the objects are shown below. The first position is at infinity, that is a maximum position where the object can be placed. The second position is beyond 2f1, and the third position is at 2f1. Fourth one is between 2f1 and f1. Fifth position is at f1. Sixth position is between F1 and O. Children, observe the table closely. Fix these in your mind. Okay, whenever an object is placed at infinity, the image is formed at F2. Likewise, when the object is at F1, the image is at infinity. That I have indicated by red color box. Hope you can see at this moment. Next, when an object is placed beyond 2f1, the image formed is between f2 and 2f2 on the other side. Likewise, when an object is placed between f1 and 2f1, then the image is formed beyond 2f2 on the other side. That is indicated by green color box. Hope you can see. And the next one is, when an object is at 2f1, the image is also at 2f2. It is indicated by black color box. Okay, then lastly, when an object is not even at the focus, you can see the last position of the object, that is between f1 and O. At that particular case, the image is formed at the same side of the lens. When a lens produces its image on the same side, that type of image is called as virtual and erect image. That's what the case over here. Got it? That is, the position of the image is on the same side of the lens. So that type of image is called as virtual and erect. Now let's see the size of the images. For the first case, you can see highly diminished point size. Second case is diminished. Third case is same size, and fourth, fifth and sixth is enlarged. So why I have indicated that with yellow boxes? We have to see the mid case. The middle case is nothing but at 2f1, at 2f2. That position you will be having the size of the images same size. Above everything will be diminished and below everything will be enlarged. The place where you see infinity, and that particular place you can add a word that is highly. So highly diminished and highly enlarged. And for the last case, nature of the image, for a convex lens, the first 5 positions will always produce a real and inverted image that is formed on the other side of the lens. And for the last case, since the image is formed on the same side, that type of image is called as virtual and erect image. Got it? Okay children, hope you understood this particular table. Now let's see the ray diagrams formed by the convex lens. The first case, when an object is at infinity, here you can see the rays of light coming parallel to the principal axis, and after refraction it always passes through the focus. That's what happening here. So the image formation point is f2, because f2 is on the other side of the lens. And for the second case, the object is beyond 2f1, the two rays coming parallel from the object, where one ray passes through the optic center, which will never ever get deviated, the other ray passing parallel, and then if it is passing parallel, after refraction it will always pass through the focus. Where it is following these two rules correctly, the image is formed between 2f2 and f2. Hope you can see the second case. For the third case, when an object is placed at 2f1, yes, from the object two rays are coming, where one ray passing parallel to the principal axis, after refraction it will always pass through focus, that is f2. And the second case, it is passing through the optic center, and the two rays, when the two refracted rays are meeting at a point, that point is the image formation point. In this particular case, it is meeting at 2f2, so 2f2 is the image formation point. Likewise, we can proceed for case 4 and case 5. And the last case, if you see the sixth case, if the object is not even at the focus, then the image will be formed on the same side. That's what's shown here. You can see an object is placed between f1 and O. When an object is placed between f1 and O, then the two rays coming from the object, one is passing through the optic center, other one is passing through the focus. So in order to plot an image, we cannot do it on the other side. So we are bringing on the same side, extending that, we will be getting an erect, enlarged virtual image. That's all about image formation for a convex lens or a converging lens. Hope you understood. Next, concave lens or a diverging lens. Now let's see the image formation table for a concave lens. It's having only two portions. One is at infinity. Second one is an object can be placed anywhere between infinity and O. Whenever an object is placed at infinity, the image is formed at f1. Noted guys, it is formed only at f1, which means that the image is formed on the same side. And this particular lens will always produce a virtual and erect image. Now let's see the ray diagrams. Yes, for the first case, that is for the first portion, when the rays are coming from infinity. So it shows when two rays are coming from infinity, after refracted by the concave lens, it gets diverged because concave lens is a diverging lens. But the diverging ray must be plotted from the focus, because as per the first rule of a concave lens, when a ray coming parallel and it passes through the concave lens, it seems to be coming from the focus. Following that particular rule, the image is formed at f1. Likewise for the second case, when an object is placed at an finite distance between infinity and optic center. So here in this case you can see the object is placed between 2f1 and f1. So two rays coming. One ray is coming parallel. It seems to be coming from focus. Another ray is passing through the optic center. It will never get deviated. When the two rays are meeting at a point, that point is the image formation point. Here you can see the image formation point that is formed on the same side of the lens. So this concave lens will always produce a virtual and erect image. These are all the uses of convex lens. So you can see so many devices over here which are using the convex lens as one of its part. You can see a telescope, you can see a binocular, you can see a flashlight, you can see a magnifying glass, a microscope, and even a spectacle. Yeah, a spectacle is using a convex lens in it in order to correct a defect called myopia or a short sight. Yes, these many devices are using convex lens. Likewise, for a concave lens. Concave lens is used in these cases, that is pie holes in the doors and to correct a long sight problem. In spectacles, this concave lens has been attached so that hypermetropia can be corrected. Yes, the next one is Cartesian sign convention for lenses, for spherical lenses. More or less the rules what we learnt for the mirrors is applicable for the lenses also, but only one change is made. All the distances are measured with respect to the optic center. Yes, I hope you remember the rules what you have studied for spherical mirrors that is being followed for spherical lenses as well. Yeah, let me just repeat the rules to be followed for sign convention for the spherical lenses. The object must be placed only at the left side of the lens. All the distances are measured with respect to the optic center. Yes, when the distance are measured parallel to the principal axis on the left side, that is taken as negative. On the right side is taken as positive. When the distances are measured perpendicular to the principal axis, above is taken as positive and below is taken as negative. Using the sign convention rules, here we get the sign values for each and every component over here, that is U, V, H, H dash, M, F and P as well. So here you can see power of lens. Let me explain you in detail later. Okay, these are all the sign values for a convex lens, and then these are all the sign values for a concave lens, where concave lens always produces virtual and erect image. Next we will see about magnification and lens formula. Under spherical lenses you have to use lens formula. 1 by f is equal to 1 by v minus 1 by u. Here I have given what is u, v and f. Likewise, magnification formula goes like this. M is equal to h dash by h or v by u. Yes, got it? That's it. Next, power of lens. What do you mean by power of lens? The degree of convergence or divergence of light rays achieved by a lens is expressed in terms of its power. Or more simply, a very simple definition, the reciprocal of focal length. Here you can see the formula for power of lens, that is P is equal to 1 by f, where P stands for power and f stands for focal length. Children, here power what we are learning is applicable for the power of a human eye's lens. So we used to see only in meters, right? We don't focus only in centimeter. We can even extend our eye vision in meters. So always this focal length will be having the unit here in this particular place as meter. But the basic unit of focal length is centimeter. But in this particular place, we are going to use the focal length unit as meter. So P is equal to 1 by f or f is equal to 1 by P. The SI unit of power is diopter, that is represented by capital D. From this, we can define what is diopter. So 1 diopter is the power of lens whose focal length is 1 meter. That is 1D is equal to 1 meter inverse, or 1D is equal to 1 by m. The power of lens of a convex lens is always positive, and the power of lens for a concave is negative. Yes. The next one is combination of lenses. Many optical instruments consist of number of lenses. They are combined to increase the magnification on the sharpness of the image. So the net power of lenses placed in contact is given by the algebraic sum of individual powers as P1, P2, P3 can be put up in the formula as P is equal to P1 plus P2 plus P3. If 3 power lenses are given, or if 2 is given, accordingly you can just use the formula P is equal to P1 plus P2. So that's the end of this video, guys. Next comes some knowledge quest and follow up. Watch it and do it yourself.